This is Outside the Box. Standing by to join me is Jeff Hardy, founder and CEO of Floor 84 Studio, F84 Games. And thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Janeane.
So I saw you on a Syracuse alumni event. That was a great event.
It was. Thanks.
What was your major in Syracuse?
I was an illustration student, traditional narrative illustration. So I was a painter and an artist and painter.
Always had this creative side to you.
Always, yeah, since I was about 6 years old. My mother always told me most kids sometimes say they want to be a policeman or a fireman, but since the earliest ages, I always said I wanted to be an artist.
I like that. I feel like people that are creative can take themselves out of whatever it is they're going through, the challenging time, especially the pandemic, and kind of throw themselves into something.
Yeah, I think throwing yourself into things, that's my general attitude. If I don't know it, my expectation is to learn it. And so I just throw myself into just about anything and everything that sparks my interest anyway.
Yes. And sometimes people will ask you, hey, do you know how to do such and such? And I've learned that you can, if it's not too crazy, you can say yes, and you can go learn it.
Yeah. I actually gave a lecture back at Syracuse years ago, one of their Wednesday symposiums. And one of the things I had said to all the students was that if you don't know it, learn it, and as an artist, continually learn, continually reinvent yourself, continually look forward as to, what does the future in the arts look like and where do you fit? And are you going to fit in one of those lanes? Are you going to fit in a lane yet to be determined? But just continual reinvention and application of your general creative purpose to anything and everything you can, because that's what creates opportunity.
Now I'm staring at the arrow, the green arrow. Does that have some kind of symbolism?
I have two arrows there. First of all, I just like architectural objects. Okay. So I have lots of weird, obscure things around me most of my life. And I happen to find a green arrow and a red arrow. And I just use it it's kind of a fun background element because I try to start the day every day with the green arrow up. I rarely turn on the red arrow because I don't ever want to acknowledge that you might have had one of those days. But I also can use the red arrow in technical difficulty, comedic relief. I was in a new meeting with folks that I had never met before. It was a Zoom meeting. None of my audio worked. Nothing was going on. We went through 3 different, teleconference, video conference softwares. And I just finally clicked on the red arrow and it lightened the challenges that we were having. So,
the first time I was on the radio here at UC Irvine, someone said, oh, don't worry. I just finished my training. Don't worry. I'm going to just give you a disc to play. You're subbing my show. No problem. You just hit play. It'll go on. It was blank. It was a blank CD.
Yeah. Famous last words of the producer. This will be so easy.
Right.
You won't have to worry about any of that.
Nothing. My first job in Boston, someone said, how do you deal with ambiguity? And I said, you know what? I'm okay with it. And you learn to be really calm under pressure because life will throw you so many curveballs.
Well, ambiguity is a tool and also an Achilles heel, right? You can use it in certain ways to be beneficial to moving things forward, but also it can be a killer too, especially in the creative field. Like, my goal in generating results is to eliminate as much ambiguity as possible. Otherwise, it's really hard to come to any sort of resolution.
Exactly.
And that's what art is. Art is ambiguous. Art is subjective. And my attitude on art is which way is the right way? The way that the individual had a better argument for their case. That's it. There is no right or wrong way.
Definitely. So tell me about your hat and your company, F84.
So F84 is, the abbreviation of Floor 84 Studio. I started the business about 20 plus years ago in Syracuse, actually, prior to moving out west. What we are is an interactive digital entertainment studio. We work with major production companies and entertainment businesses. Sometimes, what we do is referred to as branded entertainment. But we work with brands and intellectual property to build interactive engagement tools. So we will engage your audience on their platform of choice with interactive media. So games, apps, cross-platform though.
And you've done a lot of games.
We've produced a lot of content, yeah. So the studio has been making interactive content for about 12 years. And over those past 12 years, we've produced upwards of 400 plus titles, for everything you could imagine under the sun.
Oh my gosh. I want to name some of your, the brands you've worked with: Disney, Warner Brothers, Mattel, Interscope Records, Wells Fargo, Spin Master, et cetera, et cetera. How does that feel?
I mean, I think it feels pretty good when you take a minute to think about it, but I don't necessarily take too many minutes to think about it.
Yeah.
I just think that, you're only as good as what you did yesterday. And although you like to think that there's loyalty among clients and providers, in some cases there is, but at the end of the day, when you work with major corporations, it's not really a loyalty to the corporation. It's more of a rapport and relationship that you've built with the individuals you're producing with, right? So
definitely.
I feel pretty good about what we've done, considering when I started it 20 years ago, it was a cross-country move with $300 in my Nissan Altima. So we went, we've traveled a long distance, purely and figuratively. And I remember days that my art director and we would be sitting in my little 2-bedroom apartment, and we'd talk about those days when we'd be making projects for Disney and doing bigger, cool things. And then, we've been able to drive ourselves there and achieve that and fulfill some of those ideas and visions that we had.
How challenging was it 20 years ago to jump into what you wanted to do?
It's always a challenge. Everything's a challenge. The thing that's easy is actually doing it from my perspective. Like, being the creative and doing the creative work is really the easy part.
Okay.
Like aligning the opportunities, building that security and relationship to even give you the chance to go and do some of the things we do. Like, that's the hard part. That's the long tail game. And there's a lot of waiting and persistence involved. Like the studio, it started as myself, doing some window painting, which was a sign trade that I learned back east. We've gone through a lot of pivots, but it's never been easy. You've just had to perpetually be relentless and reinvent and look to the future and try to position yourself, better and better to be the person with the answers and, the folks that they want to work with.
And I feel like when you do go through these challenging times, it makes you more focused on, the end user, a better purpose, a better mission.
I think challenging times are great. I think, not that I enjoy them, right? But what I would say is, look, this last year with the pandemic, we were a diehard in the studio every day kind of business. And I think everybody having to go remote. We're working on our return to studio right now. What does that look like? It will be different. But the moral of my story is, the challenges that we faced through the pandemic era have ultimately just made us a much better company than we were before it.
Yeah.
We've had to really evaluate a lot of different things that had gone, unacknowledged for a long time. And doing all of this stuff has really driven us, I think, to a next level partner and provider with just a lot more matured systems. A lot of times when I talk to people and we're evaluating different businesses and some of my consulting clients, I always get into like the maturity of the company and like what stage are they at, and and that just comes with time. You can't become a major success overnight. It may be an overnight thing to somebody else, but it actually took that guy 25 years to get there.
Right?
Because it is just iteration, and it's just like life too. It's like the relationships I had in my 20s are much different than the relationships I have now.
Definitely.
And those relationships that I did have in my 20s, the ones that I still retain today, they have grown and evolved in their careers and opportunity as well. So, you just have to be focused on big picture and the long tail. You need short wins. You need little wins here and there to keep your enthusiasm high, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But you can't give up, and you just have to be focused down the future. I've talked to a bunch of different friends, and they've kidded with me. It's like, you're one of the only guys I know that has a 10 and 20-year plan. And I think you have to have just big goals and lofty vision for what you can do in a decade or 2 decades.
Right.
Because you can do a lot, because it is a long time, but it's hard to step back and see that when you're dealing with the day-to-day of, the operational burn of the business and receivables and selling new business and closing deals and so on. But
right. Yeah. Why do you think people love games so much? I mean, right now we're in a mental health pandemic, and I feel like it's an amazing diversion for people and escapism, because we can't really travel. I mean, you can travel probably a little bit more now, but in the midst of it, no.
Because I'd say it's because it's the most immersive and engaging type of media that there is.
Yeah.
People can engage in, a television series or a feature film, but it's linear. It's one direction. You sit there, the story is told.
Mm-hmm.
In games, you have the endless capacity to play something, ongoing for months and years.
Yes.
And it immerses you into the loop. You're part of that gameplay loop that keeps you engaged. So I think that's why. And it's escapism in so many ways. There's something for everybody. It doesn't matter if you are, a 70-year-old woman with an iPhone. There's an app for you. There's a game that's going to, appeal to your 5-minute time burn,
Good.
Or if you're a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up a 70-year-old, because right now I'm in a fellowship with Columbia University, and I'm in the Age Boom Academy, and they're saying how not only are college students isolated and lonely even before the pandemic, but you have the older adults, because they've been pushed away and isolated for their own safety. Yeah. So I'm interested in bringing the two generations together.
Yeah. I think actually, the older generation's arguably even more difficult for them, because they aren't as in tune and haven't been, so immersed in technology and all these other things that younger generations have. Digital natives have never known life without a cell phone.
I know.
And so I think you look at those older generations, and it's like, navigating a tablet is not as easy as you may think.
No.
Right?
And some of the software, is not designed so well.
Well, I mean, they do their best, but you got to remember, it's just, there is not a one, solution fits all.
Exactly.
Everybody has different aptitude. Everybody has different capacity. And if you're someone who has lived your entire life with very light touch on digital and technology, if I throw you in front of this fancy, Star Trek tablet thing, and it doesn't even have buttons, you just touch glass. Like,
you're not going to know.
Yeah. There's nothing tactile about it. Did that work? I don't know. I'm not, familiar with loading and latency and all these things that are obvious to a younger generation that's been in this their whole lives. So it's arguably harder for them, for sure.
Oh, definitely. So this show is also geared towards college students who've lost internships and jobs, even high school students. What do you look for if you were hiring? I'm not asking if you are hiring, but what are the attributes of somebody that would work well with F84?
I look for just, obviously you need to have the basics of knowledge within whatever the category is you're looking to work, right? But more than that, I really just look for raw talent and passion and ambition.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I've built my company on. I have a degree in illustration, but I run a digital interactive agency, right? And so those two things don't necessarily correlate one-to-one. I don't have a professional collegiate business background, although I run the entirety of the business development of the business. But I think that with ambition and talent, you can solve all your problems. And it goes back to what we had said earlier, which is if you don't know it, learn it.
Yes. Yeah. No, great advice. What advice would you give someone who is out of work and they want to work in the industry you're in?
Just don't give up. It's so easy to throw in the towel. It's so just the thing that I've always kept myself motivated with is the fact that I've always been a pretty talented guy, but I know I'm not the most talented, right? And I know the only thing I can do is work harder and work harder than the other guy and try to be more relentless.
Yeah.
You know, and so my attitude as I've been, you know, growing this company over the years is Labor Day, you're all going to take it off. Cool. I'm going to honor it by laboring and I'm going to do work today. Right. So it's like, just squeeze every little last inch out of what you're physically willing and able to do. And don't give up on it. You know, I think something I've heard a lot lately is, you know, people are sending resumes just to the abyss. You know, I've sent out 100 resumes and never even got an automated reply back.
Black hole.
Yeah. And I think that's just inherently the nature of where we're at as a society. We're also inundated with so much email, so many, you know, Zoom meetings, so much time doing this managerial thing that one, there's not a lot of time to actually do your work.
Exactly.
Or your core disciplinary work.
Right.
And two, I think that you have to like take that logic and then apply it to a business. And like, what are those? So I didn't hear back from F84. Why? Was it me? Not necessarily.
Maybe they're swamped.
They're swamped.
Yeah.
They got a lot going on. You know, they're a smaller organization without a, you know, robust HR department, right? Which means that those responsibilities are going to fall on other team members who have other obligations as well.
Yes.
And so trying to staff those positions is extra challenging for us as well as trying to find the right candidates, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
You know, you just give up because it's not happen now, might happen tomorrow, might not even happen next year. But if you're persistent, it will happen. You will find that slot. You will get your foot in the door somewhere. And then you can just incrementally improve your position.
You got a little choppy there, but I caught every word, but you kind of froze. But I got every word. So
okay, good.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. What would you say could be some key learning moments of this pandemic for people that are having a hard time? Let's go back to the college students. You know, like I think one big thing is, hey, network. You know, reach out to people, LinkedIn or wherever, get involved in your alumni network.
Absolutely. Get involved in your alumni network. That's your first, you know, first line of opportunity. There's people that are potentially willing to help because you have some kinship to them. But I think, you know, network is literally the most critical thing. You know, through my entire life in academics, everybody always talked about network. But there's just a certain point in your life that it actually clicks that you understand what that means.
Right.
Right. And everybody has a network. You have a friend network while you're in college. You have a professional network while you're in college. You just maintain that network and continue to grow that network because everybody starts somewhere and everybody continues to grow. Yeah. And effectively, the network you start with, while you continue to grow that network will grow with you as well, and which will create mutual opportunity both directions.
Did you have a mentor that stands out to you at some point in your life?
I had a mentor before I left the Central New York area. And it's actually, I would contribute a lot of my success today to my time spent with him. I worked with a small one-man sign shop. It was independent entrepreneur. Handled all the sales and the basics of running a small business. And I spent probably 4 years working side by side with him. And, you know, his question for me, he's like, oh, you're a talented artist. That's great. How are you going to make money? Yeah. Right? What are you going to do with that? And, you know, in my early career, I dismissed a lot of those things that were critical, which is like sales and, you know, representation and how do you create the opportunities? And really working with Tom, you know, for such a long time, opened my eyes to a lot of those solutions effectively. Like, and what the solutions really were was independent application and hustle, right? Be a self-starter, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just get out there and keep being relentless, you know?
Yeah, definitely. A casting director here in LA once said to me, I was doing some voiceover stuff and they said to all of us, it's so important for you to have a full life because you don't want to be so focused on this one thing, you know, and for your employees or whoever's watching this, you want to be doing different things. You want to have something to get into that flow state that takes you away from whatever stresses you, because you'll be better at what it is you do during the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked with lots of, grown friends and some people struggling. And the first thing I think of is like, really sounds like you need a hobby.
Right. You need a
What do you like to do that isn't directly your work?
Mhm.
Right? What do you like to do? And it's like a lot of times, especially in the creative space, like what we like to do is our work. And so, you got to watch out, because if it becomes all consuming, then you're not going to be as effective.
Right.
So, being able to have other releases in maybe complementary categories, even like, what is it for you? I don't know, right? Everybody has something, or everybody needs to find something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you can find those things to, separate yourself from that day-to-day grind of your work, quote unquote, then that's just going to make you better at it.
Right. I mean, I can give an example. So my thing is to play guitar, and I'm not
Nice.
a phenomenal guitarist, but like if I want to work on like a Van Halen riff and then I master that riff, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And that was so obtainable.
Yeah.
And also, when you take yourself away from whatever it is you're struggling with or stressing about, you can sometimes find the answers and the solution by taking a step back. Right.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, it's like when you're stepping back, what you're doing is giving yourself time to think about that thing indirectly.
Indirectly.
One of my passions outside of my work and creative is like, I love driving. And as a result, I love old cars and motors and things of that
Cool.
nature. I have no trained background in mechanics, but I'm a problem solver. And so, I'll get under the car and be working on something, and it's completely removed from my day to day. But what it does is gives me that time for my mind to just have quiet and focus. And it is almost meditative, right? So you learning your Van Halen riff is a meditative opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's really what you need to find, that thing that is your, how do you recenter yourself? How do you refocus? Because throughout the course of a day, you are pulled in 45 different directions. Your emotions are a roller coaster. You've got high highs and low lows.
Yep.
And how do you get yourself realigned right in the middle,
Yes. Yeah. Especially when you're working from home and you've got
that's, the lines are blurred.
The kids. Yeah. Oh, the lines are blurred. Yeah.
Entirely blurred.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
You can find us online. We've got a couple different websites, but to learn about the studio, you can find us at F84.com. You can also find me and a little bit more about me on LinkedIn, which is just Jeff Hardy, I believe is how you find me. But Jeff Hardy and Floor 84 Studio. There's lots of stuff in the universe.
And you're on LinkedIn, and you've got some cool videos out there.
Yeah. I've done some kind of like thought leadership in the voice space, and I'm a creator of things. Even though we make video games primarily through our business, I have just always been a maker of whatever, keeps me interested. So we've got, short form content, motivations, and we've produced some, and there's more to be produced. But it's really just keeping myself creatively engaged and motivated to keep doing what we're doing. And to do that, I have to create variety.
It makes life exciting. Let's face it.
Yes,
we don't want it to be stale.
Never. And I think that goes back to my comment of as an artist to perpetually reinvent, right?
Right.
Keep reinventing yourself, keep reapplying yourself in new ways.
I saw in one of the videos I saw on LinkedIn, and I think I put the link on my blog. My blog is otbseries.com, is you don't just come up with the idea for the game and then do the game. You actually went, and there was which one was it? Baja Big Air.
Yeah, that was fun.
Gosh, it was
an independent title in the studio. We created a kind of retro side scroll physics racing game inspired by the off-road race series, Baja 500, Baja 1000. And so, the indie game scene is a challenging one in the mobile market. You're competing against massive multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we're a small team out of the San Fernando Valley. But what we wanted to do is kind of shed a little light on what is our process. How does this, scrappy development team do their thing when they have the opportunity. So we had a lot of fun doing some research down in Ensenada, watching the races and getting really close. And it's fun taking folks that have no knowledge of racing, let alone off-road, or have ever even shifted a manual automobile, and putting them in it to see it and smell it and see what it's all about. So that's a lot of fun. That's a fun series. We actually had to stop based on pandemic, but we've got like another 4 episodes in the can, and there's another 8 that we've got to knock out. So,
I mean, not only is it great for you as a company, but your employees.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Like we've actually through this pandemic, there've been a couple times where people have mentioned going back to Ensenada because it's the best fish tacos in the world by far.
Oh my gosh, you're making me hungry.
Yeah.
All right, throw out your website one more time, please.
Okay, so website is F as in Frank 84.com. You can find us at F84.com.
Okay, Jeff Hardy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Janeane.